North America. You have probably noticed something driving through Houston or Phoenix. Everything is really far apart. North American cities spread like butter on warm toast because land was cheap and cars were king. The average American drives 13,500 miles yearly just to exist. That is not freedom. That is mandatory driving. Los Angeles covers 500 square miles with single-family homes separated from everything else. Want milk? Drive. Need a haircut? Drive. Kids want to see friends? Parents become unpaid taxi services. The suburban dream promised backyards and independence, but delivered isolation and $12,000 annual car payments. Canadian cities like Calgary and Edmonton copied this formula perfectly. Wide streets, distant strip malls, and parking lots the size of European villages. Toronto tried density downtown, but surrendered to sprawl everywhere else. The DNA here says space equals success. Bigger lots mean better lives. Except studies show suburban residents report higher stress levels than their urban counterparts. The continent built itself around the assumption that everyone would always want to drive everywhere forever. How is that working out during rush hour on the 405? South America, now imagine the complete opposite problem. Rio de Janeiro packs millions into hillsides so steep that cable cars became public transit. The geography forced creativity. When you cannot build outward because mountains block everything, you build upward and informal. Favelas house 1.5 million people in Rio alone. These neighborhoods lack official planning but overflow with street life. Medellin transformed its most notorious hillside communities by installing gondolas connecting isolated neighborhoods to downtown jobs. Ridership exceeded projections by 300%. Buenos Aires follows a loose grid pattern downtown but explodes into colorful chaos in neighborhoods like La Boca. The plaza remains sacred here. Every neighborhood centers around a public square where people actually gather. Not parking lots pretending to be gathering spaces. Actual plazas with cafes and benches and human activity. South American cities wear their inequality visibly. Gated communities with private security sit kilometers from informal settlements sharing the same hillside. The DNA prioritizes outdoor community life regardless of income level. Streets become extensions of living rooms. That sounds chaotic until you realize European tourists pay thousands to experience exactly this energy. Europe, speaking of Europeans, they had a 1,000-year head start on everyone else. Medieval cities like Amsterdam and Copenhagen were built before cars existed. Shocking revelation. Cities work better when designed for people instead of vehicles. The average Amsterdam resident cycles 900 kilometers annually. Not because they are fitness-obsessed, because the city makes cycling the fastest option. Paris bulldozed neighborhoods in the 1800s to create those famous boulevards. Baron Haussmann displaced 350,000 residents to build what tourists photograph today. Beautiful? Yes. Democratic? Not exactly. London maintains its chaotic medieval street pattern downtown while expanding outward with suburban developments. The contrast creates traffic nightmares that cost the British economy £8 billion annually. European DNA preserves historic cores while debating how to accommodate modern growth. Munich restricts building heights to protect mountain views. Barcelona experiments with superblocks that ban cars from entire neighborhoods. Copenhagen eliminated parking spots systematically for 50 years until cycling became dominant. The formula here: inherited density plus aggressive car reduction plus massive transit investment. Your American city could copy this tomorrow. They just choose not to. Asia, Tokyo handles more daily transit riders than most countries have residents. Shinjuku Station alone serves 3.6 million people daily through 36 platforms across 5 levels. That is not a train station. That is a small city underground. Asian megacities accepted density that would cause American zoning boards to faint. Hong Kong stacks 65,000 people per square kilometer. Singapore built an entire garden city on an island smaller than New York City. Seoul constructed 300 kilometers of subway in 40 years, while American cities debated single-rail extensions. The DNA here treats space as precious and transit as essential. Japanese cities zone for mixed use by default. Your apartment building might have a restaurant below, an office above, and a temple next door. Nobody complains because everyone walks to everything. Shanghai added 800 kilometers of metro in 2 decades. That is not infrastructure development. That is urban surgery at continental scale. The earthquake and typhoon risk-forced innovations that American engineers now study. Tokyo buildings sway with seismic waves instead of resisting them. Density demands efficiency. Efficiency demands innovation. Innovation creates cities that actually function at any scale. Africa. Lagos grows by 77 residents every hour. No planning system on Earth can accommodate that pace. African cities represent the future of urbanization happening in real time without the budgets to manage it. Nairobi matatus carry 70% of all transit trips using privately owned minibuses that follow demand rather than fixed routes. Chaotic? Absolutely. Effective? More than official systems. The colonial grid patterns remain in city centers, while informal settlements expand in every direction. Johannesburg covers 1,600 square kilometers with some of the most segregated urban geography ever created. Apartheid designed that separation intentionally. The infrastructure still enforces it decades later. African DNA combines rapid informal growth with inherited colonial frameworks. Mobile money revolutionized commerce because physical banks never reached most neighborhoods. M-Pesa processes more transactions in Kenya than most European countries. Innovation happens when formal systems fail to serve populations. The urban future might not look like European preservation or Asian efficiency. It might look like African adaptation, flexible, informal, and responsive to needs that planners never anticipated. Oceania, Sydney, and Melbourne could have built dense coastal cities. Instead, they sprawled across landscapes the size of small countries. Sydney metropolitan area covers 12,000 square kilometers for 5 million people. London fits 9 million into 1,500 square kilometers. The math reveals the choice. Australian cities inherited British planning frameworks but applied them to landscapes that rewarded horizontal expansion. Beach culture demanded proximity to coastlines rather than urban centers. Perth spreads 150 kilometers along the coast but only 50 kilometers wide. The city is essentially a really long parking lot with ocean views. Auckland copied the sprawl formula despite mountainous terrain that fights back constantly. New Zealand cities developed around harbors but expanded into car-dependent suburbs that create world-class traffic congestion for cities their size. The DNA prioritizes outdoor living, backyard culture, and automobile dependence. Beautiful weather encourages this lifestyle. Infrastructure costs make it unsustainable. Australian cities spend billions on motorway expansions that fill with traffic immediately. The induced demand research comes largely from Australian case studies. They keep running the same experiment, expecting different results. Middle East, Dubai built ski slopes in the desert, while residents wait 3 hours in traffic. The Gulf states represent what happens when unlimited money meets virtually zero urban planning constraints. Abu Dhabi and Doha created cities entirely dependent on air conditioning and automobiles. Summer temperatures exceed 45 degrees Celsius. Walking becomes physically dangerous. This was the urban planning choice. Ancient cities like Yazd or Old Jeddah used narrow streets and thick walls to create natural cooling for centuries. Modern Gulf cities rejected that wisdom for glass towers that require constant climate control. The Burj Khalifa consumes enough electricity to power 10,000 homes, one building. The DNA here splits between ancient urban wisdom and modern petrodollar excess. Traditional souks create shaded walkable markets. Modern malls require driving across 6-lane highways. Riyadh covers 1,500 square kilometers with 7 million people. Most European capitals fit 3 times that population in half the space. The construction continues regardless. Megaprojects promise sustainable futures, while current cities demand massive energy consumption just to remain habitable. Scandinavia. Copenhagen removed 3% of parking annually for 50 years. Now cycling dominates transport mode share at 49% of all trips. That is not Danish culture. That is Danish policy creating culture. Stockholm charges congestion fees that reduce downtown traffic by 22% permanently. Oslo plans to ban cars from the city center entirely by 2030. Their Nordic neighbor Finland maintains walkable density despite winters that would justify driving everywhere. The DNA here proves that urban planning choices matter more than climate or culture. Norwegian cities have identical weather to Canadian cities but completely different urban outcomes. Helsinki density matches Manhattan in some neighborhoods. Calgary spreads across prairies like spilled paint, same latitudes, same winters, different choices. Scandinavian cities invested in public space quality rather than private vehicle convenience. The results appear in happiness indices, health outcomes, and carbon emissions. These cities prove alternatives exist. Other continents simply choose not to adopt them. Antarctica's DNA? Just penguins and ice. No zoning laws needed. Which DNA does your city carry? Like and subscribe for more urban reality checks.